Hi everybody. If you're looking to streamline your day-to-day bookkeeping and keep your accounts accurate with less manual work, now is the perfect time to get familiar with bank feeds in Sage 50 accounts. We're running a two-part webinar series that will guide you through everything you need to know, from getting set up to confidently managing your reconciliations. In part one, we'll focus on the essentials to get you up and running with bank feeds. We'll walk you through connecting your bank to Sage 50 accounts. Following that, we'll look at how to use the auto match option, which saves you time, and learn how Sage automatically matches your transactions. We'll then move on to manually matching transactions and show you how to create Sage transactions directly from the bank feeds window based on your imported transactions from your bank without needing to leave the bank feeds window. This keeps your workflow fast, tidy, and all in one place. We'll explain how to review your approved match transactions and exactly what to look out for and how to keep everything accurate. We'll complete part one by demonstrating how bank feeds integrate into your reconciliation process. Part two covers creating and setting up rules. These are used to automatically process transactions as they download from your bank. You can create up to 300 rules for each bank account, so this can be a great time saver and where bank feeds really comes into its own. These are sessions all about giving you confidence while saving you time and keeping your accounts up to date with less effort. Join us live where we'll be hosting both webinars with demonstrations and practical guidance throughout. Don't miss this opportunity to make your bank reconciliation faster, smarter and easier. Reserve your place today at sage.co.uk/webinars, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this morning's session. Welcome along. We're looking at part one of generating a VAT return in Sage 50 accounts. So the VAT return itself, fairly straightforward with it. That's what we're going to be running through today. There are three tabs in the VAT return, and we're going to be running through tabs 1 and 2. The final tab, so your sort of follow-up tasks once you've reconciled. The third tab, essentially that will be covered in part 2 of our webinar. Now, this morning's session should take around about 45 minutes. Just depends how many questions we get along the way. Obviously, I'll be trying to pick those up as we go. Just myself running this session with you. So we'll just run through a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get started. So during the session this morning, you don't need a microphone. If you've got one, you'll find it's muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself. Does mean, however, any questions that you might have for us, you'll need to pop them into the questions panel. So to access that, just click the little speech bubble icon, which is on your toolbar down the right-hand side of your screen. So just give it a click and you have access to that little box at the bottom. So any comments or questions you have, you can pop them in there. Remember to click send, otherwise I won't get them. And if you do want a copy of today's handout, so a copy of today's slides, you can take that opportunity to download them during the session. Now, as normal, we always record the sessions. A link to the recording will be included on your follow-up email, so you'll have access to that around about an hour after you finish. The follow-up email also includes a link so you can register for our other upcoming webinars, loads to go out next month. There's our invoicing badge, bank feeds, which that little video told you about just at the beginning there, and a number of other sessions as well. So do watch out for that and get yourself registered if you are interested. It will also give you a link to our recordings page. So if there's any sessions you have missed, or maybe you can't, you're just too excited and you can't wait for a specific webinar and you think, oh, there's a recording already, you can watch it there and then if you want. So loads of topics already on there. Anyway, let's get stuck into today's session. So this is what we're going to be covering. So quick introduction. I want to quickly mention about Sage 50 Accounts version 33 because there have been changes. We're obviously going to run through a demonstration that's going to form the majority of today's session. And then just at the end, just as normal, explain a little bit about the additional support. And if there's any outstanding questions at that point, I'll run through them. Right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly pop a poll on your screen. So if you don't mind, choose an option. So which return do you generate? Do you generate a UK VAT return only, an Irish VAT return only, or do you generate both? I'll just give you a moment to answer that. Just gives me a little bit of background, so I know what I'm sort of dealing with, as it were. Not many of you on today, so I'll just end that and share the results with you as well. So you can see uh, on that we got 6 of you saying you do a UK return, 2 of you saying you do an Irish return. Nobody this morning has said they do both. So let's just close that. We'll get back to the demo. Okay, so thanks for that. It just gives me a little bit of an idea of sort of regionally who's turning up. Right. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit about version 33. Now, a couple of changes for VAT in version 33, and the the obviously the users that are most likely to benefit are when you do both VAT returns. So you do a UK return, you might do more than one, and you do an Irish return, but you want to do that from the same PC. Historically, before accessing the relevant company, you would have had to make sure that your Windows regional settings were correct, so that the correct VAT options were displayed in your software. So if you were switching between a UK company and an Irish company, obviously you close out your UK company, set your Windows regional settings before you're going into your Irish company. And that's in version 33. If you've installed that, there's no need to do that anymore. So as you go in, it will just pick up your the regional options based around the company that you're accessing. It's quite common, and people in that situation, you'd probably a little bit easier to have separate PCs, Irish companies on one, UK companies on the other. Save you having to keep remembering to change those regional settings. So that's a thing of the past now from version 33 onwards. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to run through the VAT return wizard. So you access it in pretty much the same way. Now, today I've got some slides, we've used these for a little while now, where we show you the screenshot of what it looks like for those of you that are UK based, and a screenshot for those of you that are Irish based. So we're going to run through the process. Now, yes, the VAT return itself looks a little bit different. It's got different boxes, but the process that you're going to run through, the actual wizard to generate your VAT return, is pretty much the same. So same options. Yeah, there's slight subtle differences here and there. The appearance of the VAT return itself, obviously what's picked up in what box, again, that will differ. But largely speaking, the process of generating that return, it's the same steps involved. So when you go into the VAT ledger, you'll have a VAT return option on your toolbar at the top. And that's what we're going to look at in the following demonstrations. Now, when you access the VAT return, again, depending where you're based, you'll see the wizard looks essentially, it's got the same options. So you've got 3 steps along the top, and for each step that you run, you'll have a number of tasks. So today we're covering tabs 1 and 2 at the top. So we'll be running through that all the way through from calculating your VAT return to agreeing your figures and actually flagging it as being reconciled to generate the actual VAT return itself. Step 3, where the complete VAT return, that's what we're covering in the part 2 of the VAT return. I think it's tomorrow morning at 11. If you haven't signed up for that one, do. There is a recording available, or we tend to run it every month anyway. So, if you want to come back to it nearer the time, you can. But as you can see, when you access that VAT return wizard, the steps are primarily the same. That's what we're going to run through at this stage. Right, let me get back to my desktop and we'll start running through some demos. Now I am set up for a UK return today. So again, when with the majority. So we're going to access the VAT ledger. And if you've got any previous VAT returns, they will be listed. And it means that if needed, you can go and look at an old VAT return. So you just double click, it'll bring it up, and you've got various options. So you can view your figures on your VAT return. You can reprint your reports if needed. So you've got this, essentially you've got a VAT return archive. Now, if it's not there, you're not going to be able to get it back. So if it's an old one and it's subsequently been deleted, you're not going to be able to get that back on your list. It's gone. But you'll probably find that you've got loads of these. Obviously, we're going to be picking up more on the sort of the status, the paid, the VAT transfer. That's something we pick up in part 2. Now, when you click VAT return at the top, first thing to be aware of, if you've got anything highlighted, it's going to bring up that VAT return, and that's not what we want. So either remove your highlight, or if you find you can't because of your selection style, just click clear at the top. It'll remove all highlights, and then click VAT return to essentially launch your wizard. So nice and simple, step 1. It's got a few tasks down the left-hand side. So the first one is to back up. So I'm sure you're more than familiar with backing up, but we'll run through it as it's there. So we want to make sure we include the data files. Doesn't really matter about anything else at this stage. And you can give it a file name. The default file name, just in case you've ever looked at that and think, well, where's that come from? Sage Accounts always puts that at the beginning. It's then got your company name. So in my case, it's demo VAT return. It's then got your date in reverse order. It's then got the time, so hour, minutes, seconds, that you accessed it. And it's got 001 on the end. Now, you probably never come across, if you're fairly new to Sage, in fact, even if you've used it a long time, you might have never come across the significance of 001. It goes back to when we used to use floppy disks. So we used to get a mighty 1.4 megabytes on a floppy disk. So when you were backing up, obviously these days backups are absolutely enormous, or they can be. So you'd probably be sitting there popping floppy disks in. So the first file name when you're inserting your floppy disk, as it were, would be .001. Once that disk was full, it would then say, right, disk full, you need to put your next disk in, and then it would change that to .002, .003, etc., until that backup was complete. But these days, you'll probably only ever see .001. You'll be backing up to either your hard disk, maybe a network drive, maybe like a memory stick, which probably going to have a lot or more than enough space for your backups. But so you can change that file name if you want to, call it whatever you want. It'll always put that .001 on the end for you. Choose your location. Obviously mine just defaulted to the desktop. If you need to change it, just click browse, choose wherever it is you want to save that. And then other than that, you click OK. It does prompt you, would you like to check your data before you back up? So I'm going to click yes to that. It's really quick on mine because it's a tiny set of data. If you come across any errors, warnings, or comments, to find out exactly what they are, you would just click the appropriate tab down the left-hand side. So I've got some transactions which are dated in the future. I can expand that to get the actual detail as well. So I've got a few which are dated, obviously because of mine being demonstration data. I've just got some that are dated for subsequent periods. Obviously, we've entered some invoices as well, and it's picked that up as being future dated, but nothing to worry about in this instance. Only time you really would maybe want to worry about that is if you shouldn't have any. If you need to find out more about the errors, warnings, or comments, though, you've always got the link top left help link, or you can just press F1 on your keyboard and you can search for the error warning or comment within the Help Center. And it'll tell you what it means and what you need to do about it, if anything. So we'll just close out of that, let the backup take place. Again, very quick on mine. Lorraine, you were just asking there, sorry, I missed your question there when you popped it in. With regard to the VAT returns that are listed, so in the background here, if it's missing, could it be in an archive? Yeah, potentially. And that would be included as part of when you've archived the data. So it might be in there. But within your live company, you're not going to get it back into that list. Anyway, we'll go back to the VAT return. So we've taken our backup and we checked our data, everything was fine. Next, we just want to enter our date range. Now it will automatically pick up sort of the start of your VAT period based around the last one that was generated. Now I'm going to change mine. I'm going to be running mine from October 2025 to December 2025. Sure you choose the right year there. So it tells me what the date range is based around my selection. It's a good month, obviously, this one, to re-emphasize that, obviously with only having 28 days. Some people, what you will find, some people may change to custom, and the one that catches you out is when you specify up to the 30th of the month. So if I was running that up to the end of December and I've accidentally put the 30th, it means I've missed the 31st. If there's transactions in there, it wouldn't have picked it up. So it defaults to using whole months. Now this option here, it confuses loads and loads of people. It's there for historic purposes. Chances are you will never ever use this option. You will never tick the box. You wouldn't normally tick it. What it's used for, and it goes back to almost like what I was mentioning earlier, if you've deleted an old VAT return and you think, actually, I need to see, give me an idea of what it was like at the time. What you could do is specify the relevant period and you can say, right, I want to include reconcile transactions. Because a normal VAT return will not pick up reconcile transactions because they've already been accounted for. So if you just run an old VAT return based on a period that you've reconciled, it wouldn't find anything. That's the only time you would really use that option. Just leave it blank. When I calculate my VAT return, which we're going to do in a few minutes' time, I want it to look for transactions that haven't yet been reconciled in my current VAT quarter, but also of the any transactions that haven't been reconciled prior to my VAT period, so late entries. So just leave that one blank. You wouldn't tick that box. We then come on to the VAT verification. Now, these were introduced when this wizard was, or this style of wizard was first introduced in the VAT return. Most of the feedback we got were, well, I never feel confident when I generate the VAT return. You might still be in that position. But obviously, the more you do it, the more confident you are going to get. And the VAT verification options were added just to hopefully to try and boost your confidence a little bit. It'll look for sort of common processing errors. I'll run through them in a moment. So try and identify those potential issues that you might have prior to you actually generating the VAT return and submitting it. Very common where people go, you know, I've run the VAT return, I've reconciled it, I've submitted that, and I've just realized that I've entered this transaction twice, or I've got some invoices that I've entered, but I never updated them to the ledgers. So it would mean you've never accounted for that. So this is where the verification checks come in. Now you're going to have either 7 or 8 checks, depending on the level of your software. If I just go into that, you should find that they're all ticked by default. I'll quickly run through them just so you know what they relate to. So the first one is to identify possible duplicate transactions. So have you entered a bank payment twice and it's got essentially got the same detail in there? So when you partway through entering something, you got interrupted, you thought, right, that's it for today. I'll just save where I want to. You've picked up where you've left off, or maybe your colleagues picked up from where they thought you left off, and they've keyed it in. Essentially, you duplicated it. So it can try and identify that for you. It tries to identify missing entries. So invoices or credits which you've entered, but you've never or haven't yet been updated to your ledgers. Should they have been if they're there? Probably. If they're not updated to the ledgers, then obviously there's no transactions on your audit trail, and it's the transactions on the audit trail that are picked up by the VAT return rather than looking at the individual invoices and credits on the invoices and credits list. You've got a similar one for purchase orders. Now, this is the one that's you may or may not have. If you're on professional, or if you've got the purchase orders ledger, if you're on essentials or standard, you don't have access to the purchase orders ledger, so you wouldn't have this check available to you. It's not relevant to you. Now, this one, to identify purchase orders which have been delivered but not invoiced, if you use the purchase orders area, so those of you on professional, it's a bit of a 50-50 divide on whether you will actually use the update ledgers option within purchase orders or not. For some, you will enter the purchase order, and when that's delivered and you book the stock in, you then have the option to update your ledgers, and it will guide you through essentially generating an invoice against the supplier. Others will actually just go directly to the supplier ledger and enter a batch invoice. And if you do it that way, just entering a batch invoice, it means that the purchase order will never be updated, and it just generates a verification result. So it would say, right, this one's been delivered, but it's not been invoiced. So in that instance, that's fine, not a problem. It's for those of you that do use the update ledgers option within purchase orders, then this will try, similarly to invoices and credits, it will try and identify that for you. So 50-50 whether you would leave this one, probably leave this one ticked or not. Next, we've got an option to identify transactions with a VAT value where the tax code is not included on the VAT return. Now, this one would be where you've used a tax code. It may have a VAT rate assigned to it, may not, but the transaction has a VAT value. So it may or may not have a net value, but it's got a VAT value. And you've used the tax code, which behind the scenes is not ticked to say it needs to be included in the VAT return. Now that could be because of a processing error. You've just you've keyed in a tax code and you've chosen a one that's not flagged to be included in the return. So by default, for instance, let's say you meant to key in T1 and you've keyed in, let's say T10, for instance. It's not flagged as being in use by default. So we'll try and identify that for you. Coming down to the other potential issues, first of all, you've got this option here to check the VAT values on transactions. Now it's going to look at the VAT value and it's say, right, as long as it's not equal to 0, is the VAT value within, and you've got these sort of threshold settings. So if you're in the UK, it's 21 and 18%. So is that VAT value within 18 and 21% of the net value? If you are in Ireland, obviously the rates are slightly different. So the rates in that instance will be between 21 and 24%. You can change that if you want to. You might narrow it down. Next, we come on to probably the one that generates the most sort of results for you. So this one is going to identify sales and purchase transactions not using your most common tax code, which you can specify. By default, it'll be T1. Again, obviously that's if you're in the UK, that's currently going to show as T120 for the standard VAT rate. If you're in Ireland, it's going to show as T123 for, again, your standard VAT rate. Now, most businesses, I think you probably agree with this one, you've probably got a range of transactions. So yes, you might have a lot of transactions which are T1, but you probably have quite a few others which aren't. So if you're in the UK, for instance, you would use T0 for zero rated, T2 for exempt transactions. You're probably going to have quite a few of those. Now this check here, because we're saying, right, I want you to identify these sales and purchase transactions that don't use this tax code, potentially it can throw out a lot of queries because then it's not using T1. It's not saying they're wrong, it's just saying, right, this is your most commonly used tax code. So can you identify anything that doesn't use that? If you're in a business where the majority of your transactions are zero rated or exempt, you can just choose the appropriate tax code. Now, any of these, you can also just say, right, I don't want it to check for that. The third check in this section is to identify journal transactions where the tax code is not selected as non-VATable. I always think that's quite a difficult explanation, this one, the way it words it. But your non-VATable tax code by default is T9. And when you enter journals, it will pick up your non-VATable tax code. So it should pick up T9 by default. The vast majority of journals that you enter into Sage, things like bank transfers, salary journals, might just be year-end adjustments, that type of thing. But the vast majority of journals that you enter into your accounts will be categorized as non-VATable. Now, there will be instances where it needs to be categorized as some other tax code. But all this is saying is, because the majority should be non-VATable, I'll identify and point them out to you if there's any that aren't flagged as non-VATable. So anything other than T9, it'll identify it. And it just highlights it. So if necessary, sort of raising your attention towards it. And if necessary, you could do something about that. If it's wrong, might not be. But it identifies it, says, right, this is unusual. And then the final one, not really relevant to anyone in the UK anymore, but if you're in Ireland, the final check will identify possible incorrect EC transactions. So if you've used an EC tax code, have you got the right information entered within your customer or supplier records? Or have you got, for instance, the VAT registration number entered? If not, and you've used an EC tax code, then again, it will identify that as a possibly incorrect transaction. So I'm going to leave them all ticked. We'll just OK that. And that's essentially just about step one completed. So nice and straightforward. We've taken it back up. We've set our date range and we've looked at the verification settings, but I haven't changed anything. So once you've gone through that check, you might think, well, actually, I'm not going to keep going in. You don't need me telling you about it for 10 minutes about what each of the settings are. So all you've done is you've backed up and you've set your date range and you're ready to click calculate. Now, when we click calculate, you get a bit of a progress bar, really quick in my example. You're going to get one of two windows up here. You might get a window like this one, or you might just get a smaller window with an OK button that says so many transactions have been found for your VAT return. You just click OK, takes you on to step two. Now, when you click calculate, what the software is going to do, it's going to look at the date range you've specified and obviously your VAT scheme, so it knows the type of transactions that it needs to pick up. What it will look for any VATable transactions within the relevant date range for your VAT scheme that haven't yet been included in a VAT return, so haven't yet been reconciled. But what it will also do, it will look for any late entries. So, or have you backdated anything? Is there anything that wasn't entered in time to be included in the previous VAT return? So in my case, it's found two. So it's telling me in total, 148 transactions have been found for the VAT return, two of which are unreconciled, and they're prior to, in this case, the start of my VAT quarter, which was beginning of October 2025. Do I want to include them? Now, if you had loads of transactions, it's probably that you've maybe just forgot to reconcile the previous period. Not common these days, but it used to be. So if you're just getting reams and reams of transactions that you think, right, they should have been accounted for in the previous VAT return, chances are you've just never reconciled it. But in this instance, I've just got two, which are dated towards, in this case, towards the end of the month for the previous VAT quarter. So do I want to include them or not? Now, it might be transactions that just weren't entered in time. It might be transactions where you've maybe had to delete or reverse a transaction, so you've got a correction in there. It might be a transaction that you've edited. So you've amended the values where it's had to, because it was reconciled, it's maybe had to reverse it and repost. So you might get a number of transactions, not necessarily just late entries. Now, what you would need to decide is, do you want to include these transactions or do you want to ignore them? You can print your list, you can send it to Excel if you want to sort of close out the VAT return and go away and start investigating these, are they correct or not. You can highlight transactions. Now, what I can't do is I can't choose to include one but not the other. It's these options at the bottom, include and ignore. It's an all or nothing situation. You can either include both or I can ignore both. I can't pick and choose. Obviously, if I've made a mistake, say one of these maybe just got the wrong date on, for instance, or whatever it is, I could always close out the VAT return, go and correct that so it doesn't identify it as a late entry then. But I'm going to choose to include them. These are just late entries, so they weren't entered in time to be included on the previous return. So I'll include them, and that takes me on to step 2 at the top. Now, step 2, if I just go back to the slides for a moment, just so again we can see the differences between what that looks like in the UK and what it looks like in Ireland. Well, step 2, as you'll see, other than the VAT return down the right-hand side, different boxes, the options are pretty much the same. Now, on the screenshot, albeit on the UK, it's on that one, it's identified quite a few potential queries. We're going to go through that in a moment. Obviously, we haven't got that on the demo on the Irish screenshot there. But the options that you've got down the left, exactly the same. Right, let's go back to, just bear me one moment. Just click the wrong button there. Just try and turn the camera back off. There we go. Don't want to scare you away. It's the next button. So let's see if I can share my screen now. There we go. Right, so back to step 2 of the VAT return. So in this case, we've got these tasks to complete. We've got our VAT return and it's got some figures that have been calculated as well. Now the first option is the verification results. So in this case, it's saying we got 31 potential queries that have been identified. Obviously, if it doesn't find anything, that's fine. This option would be grayed out. But we'll just click to view the results. And it'll show you the checks that we had available. Now, any that have a tick just means that nothing's been identified for that particular check. The ones that have the sort of amber triangle will have a view button next to them. So you can click view and it will list the queries for you. So again, I can print that list, I can send it to Excel if I want to go out and start, checking the transactions individually. I've got one here. It says one invoice or credit, which is not being updated. If I view that one, and you might look at it and think, oh, what's a recent one? probably should have been updated. But this one, it's from 2021, so it's probably an invoice that I've entered and it's never been updated. Maybe it should have been deleted at the time. So I'm going to look at that and I'm thinking, actually, I'll just ignore it this time round. Maybe I'll do something about that later on. Maybe I'll go and delete invoice 84 from the list. It's never been updated to the customer's account. So just work through them. Are there any corrections that you need to make? I'm just going to close out. Next, we come on to the make adjustments option. Now, again, similar to that tick box that we saw at the beginning, next to the date range, this is potentially an option that you'll not use. It's used primarily for things like specific VAT schemes where, let's say you're on, let's say, a partial exemption scheme. There may be calculations that you need to make to the calculated VAT return for your specific VAT scheme. If there is, you'll have an option to adjust your VAT return. So we've got some figures here that have been calculated based on those 148 transactions or whatever they were. So it's got the calculated figures down the right here. If I need to make an adjustment to it, just click the button. It shows me the figures that have been calculated. I'll just drag it across so you can see the figures in the background there. So I can see that. Obviously, if you're in Ireland, you're going to have more boxes listed here. If you need to make an adjustment, you just click against the relevant box that you need to post the adjustment for. You would pop in your reason. Obviously, you can do multiple adjustments if necessary, but you would pop in your reason and then you would put your adjustment value in, and that can be positive or negative. And once you've entered that, when you save it, it will just take you back to this screen where you're showing you the manual adjustments. It will list the value and what your adjusted figure will be when you close out of this screen on the VAT return itself. But I'm not going to put any adjustments through. Now, if you do additional calculations for things like partial exemption, you're probably going to do that on the likes of spreadsheets. So you might have certain reports, transaction listings, etc. So what you can do is you can add an attachment to your VAT return. It'll not get submitted to HMRC or to the revenue. It is just for your reference purposes. So it will essentially save a copy of that document or documents if there's more than one, and it will attach it to the VAT return. So you can always get back to that, a copy of that document if necessary. If needed, you would just click add attachments. I'm sure you've probably seen this in other areas of the software now when you're entering transactions or you're working in a customer record, a supplier record, you can add attachments there. And it would just be a case of either dragging the attachment or clicking browse and selecting it. Next, we come on to the, let's call it the fun part of the VAT return, checking your figures. Not sure anyone refers to it as that, but we'll call it the fun part today. So we've got two options when it comes to, I suppose, checking your figures. You've got your figures that are calculated on the right-hand side here for your VAT return. You can also print out reports. Now, a lot of people do print out reports before they even get this far. So you'll go into customers and maybe do a list of a debut customer invoices report, or into the bank accounts area and do a list of bank payments, etc. You can do the same by within the VAT return on step 2 by clicking reconciliation reports. Bring up this window, we just expand the reconciliation reports folder, choose our VAT scheme, yours should be listed, and then choose the area of the software that you would have gone to generate the reports from. So you might have gone into bank accounts and generated the likes of a daybook bank payments report. All this does is it brings the reports that you would potentially generate for your VAT scheme, it brings them into one area. So you can go into the bank, you can go into customers, you can pop into nominal suppliers, and it will give you the relevant reports. Now, how many reports you do, entirely up to you. Some people will print nothing. Some people will generate a copy of the VAT return only. Others will print everything they can possibly imagine, and probably other reports which probably don't even relate to the VAT return calculation. So wherever you sit on that sort of spectrum of however many reports you do, it's a personal choice thing. Now I want to quickly pick up on the drill down option down the right hand side. Again, you'll have this in Ireland. Not all boxes will be drillable. The ones that are the ones that have these little icons next to the values. And this is such a commonly used support tool, this one, where people contact our support team and they'll be at this position and go, well, I've generated the VAT return, but the figure in box 1 looks wrong. It's higher, lower, or maybe you just want that bit better understanding of that. You want to know how it sort of calculates. So what you can do is you can click on it, and for the box that you've clicked on, it will bring up this sort of transaction by tax code breakdown. So you can see for mine, it's got the relevant transaction types that are picked up by box 1 and the relevant tax codes that contribute to box 1 as well. And it shows you the breakdown of the value. So I might be looking at that and think, well, maybe that accounts for the difference. You've got a big credit note, or maybe there was a big receipt that had gone through in a particular period. If you want to, and you're looking at that and you think, well, where's that figure come from? What you can do is highlight it and then just double click it. And this will go down to what I term drill down level 2. So it lists the transactions that make up that value that you just double clicked on. Again, credit notes, I highlight that one, double click it, and again, it will list the relevant transactions. You've got the transaction number, so once you've got that full traceability. You can do that for any of these boxes on the VAT return. In Ireland, you have similar options. So you can, again, just click on the option. It'll bring up the table. So transaction types by tax code with the appropriate values. Then if you want to drill down on one, just highlight it, then double click it. Again, it will give you the list of transactions. That's such a common support tool, that one. So when people contact us, and as I say, they're inquiring about what's a bit higher than expected, we just point them in that direction and go, oh yeah, right, I remember now. It might be enough just to jog your memory. Particularly with something that happened maybe at the beginning of the VAT quarter, so not as recent. Now you can print your VAT reports as well. So if we just click print VAT return on the left there, you'll see we get a series of reports that we can potentially print. The adjustment one is grayed out on mine. That's because I didn't actually record any adjustments. Similarly, this earlier unreconciled, so that relates to, remember those 2 transactions that I said I wanted to include as opposed to ignore? If I'd ignored them, this one would be grayed out as well. It wouldn't be relevant because there's nothing to report on. But these 5, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly preview them so you can see them. It'll generate all 5 for me. So I'll just accept that. So it generates the figures for me. I'm just going to rearrange these so I can get out the one I'm after. Let's have a look. So the first one was the VAT return itself. Now, if you're going to generate a report and maybe print one out, this would be the one that you're going to go for. This is UK return. It's going to show me boxes 1 to 9. Some stats at the top, including the period that I've calculated the return for. So it's going to give me basic overview figures, how many transactions were included, how many were prior, how many in total. I've got boxes 1 to 9 with the relevant values against them. The second report was the summary, which is this one. Just maximize that. So when we clicked on a figure, give us that table. Transaction types by tax codes with the relevant values. So we'll do that for each of the boxes that potentially you could drill down on. The detailed report. Now this is going to essentially drill down level 2. So for instance, it's saying box 1, sales invoices at T1. Here's a list of your transactions that made up that value. And it'll do that for the other areas as well. So if we just scroll down, see if we can get to a point where it changes, so you can see what that then looks like. It can be quite a lengthy report, this one, as you can see. Even for mine, it's an 8-page report. So next section, it's saying transactions included in VAT box 1 for credits, T1. Again, it's giving me that transaction breakdown. And it would just continue doing that for each of the, I suppose, each of the boxes that you could drill down on where there is a value. It's a great report to have if you ever have a VAT inspection. You know, say, right, well, this is your latest VAT return. How did you calculate it? Say, well, there's the transaction breakdown of box 1. You can take it from that point. You're not just saying, right, there was 10,000 declared in box 1. Where on earth did that come from? You've got that detail should you need it. Now, this report, the earlier unreconciled transactions, which was the 5th one on the list, or the 4th one that I was able to select, this one's the equivalent of the detailed report, but it's based around just those transactions which were the late entries. So it's picked that up. So we can report on it separately if needed. And then the final report is the same as the detailed report, but it just groups the transactions by department. If you don't use departments, obviously you don't need to generate this one. Even if you do, you might think, well, actually, I don't need that level of detail as far as the VAT return is concerned. Again, can be quite a lengthy report, this one. Now, let's say you've generated your VAT return, you've agreed the figures as best you can, you've done whatever checks you need to. There's advice on how you go about doing that sort of thing within our help centre as well. But let's say you agree the figures. So we've completed the tasks on step 2, we've done whatever reports we want. We're ready to reconcile. Now, when we click reconcile, just wait for the message to pop up, we get this prompt, flag transactions as VAT reconciled. Now, what this essentially means is when we click yes in a moment, the 148 transactions which were included in the calculation of this VAT return, they're going to be ticked. So they're going to be reconciled, but they're ticked in the background essentially to say, right, we've accounted for the VAT on these transactions. So this is just saying, do you want to flag the transactions? In my case, yes, I do. If you just come in to check your VAT return and you were thinking, oh, I just wanted an idea of what that looked like, don't click the reconcile option. Or if you do, you want to click no at that point. You just want to close out the VAT return. But I want to click yes. I want to flag those transactions as being VAT reconciled. Little progress bar while we do that. And then that's it done. It takes me on to step 3. And it's the step 3 tasks, these tasks down the right-hand side. That's what we're going to be covering in the part 2 session tomorrow morning. Now, what else has happened? Well, if we just close out the VAT return, it has generated VAT return and added that to the list. It's only going to do that if you reconcile. If you just go into the VAT return, you check your figures, then you just close out without reconciling, it's not going to do that. So if you reconcile, it will. Now, you might just close out your VAT return at that point. You think, right, I'll complete sort of step 3 as and when I'm ready. If and when you are ready, you can obviously double click your VAT return, brings up that return that we've just generated essentially. It shows it's reconciled at the top. It's got the date range in there that we specified for our VAT quarter. You can still drill down on the figures if you needed to, all the way, including all the way down to transaction level. You can print your reports. So if you did have that VAT inspection and you're thinking, oh, I remember Michael saying the detailed one was a great report to have, you can still get at that if you haven't already generated it. You can view your verification results. Again, you can drill into it so you can see what they were. And you can view any adjustments that were posted. And that's it. These tasks, as I mentioned, we're going to include, or we're going to cover in detail in the VAT Return Part 2, which is tomorrow at 11. So if you aren't signed up for that one yet, do get yourself signed up. I'm going to pop back to the slides. I'll try not to share my camera this time. So it brings us to the end of the initial demo. Just want to quickly show you that sort of step 3 as well, so you can see the difference again between the UK and Ireland. Other than your VAT return down the left-hand side, obviously different boxes, different calculations, the rest of it's pretty much the same. But again, we're going to be running through that in pretty much the same format in tomorrow's session. So we'll run through the VAT transfer, the submission, and also the recording of a payment or receipt. If you've got any final questions, if you want to quickly pop them into the questions panel, if you get them submitted now, if you think of anything afterwards, obviously you can, if you're coming back tomorrow, you can ask them then, or you can just reply to any of the webinar emails. Or come to myself directly or our team mailbox and we can pick those up for you. If you need to speak to someone about the software itself and maybe running your VAT return, you need a bit of extra guidance, then do get in touch with our support team. Loads of information available in our help centre as well. The help centre obviously divides it by region. So you would just go into the VAT area, choose your region, and it would try and guide you to the relevant supporting information for you. Okay, now that does bring us to the end of this morning's session. So we're nearly on time. So let me quickly thank you for attending. Appreciate you coming along. Hope you have enjoyed it. And for some of you, you'll be thinking, well, I knew all of that. Great, but you got a bit of reassurance that your understanding is correct. You never know, you might have picked up some tips along the way. Maybe you're just feeling a little bit more confident. For those that are new to the VAT area, hopefully you're thinking, oh, it's not as scary as I thought it might be. So hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident. If you need those step-by-step guides, you will find loads of information available from our help centre though. So do check that out. Now, as you leave, there will be the opportunity to complete our little survey. If you can take a minute to do that, it's all we ask. If you complete that survey, share your thoughts, give us a score. If you've got any thoughts or ideas, topics you'd like to see covered, so thoughts and ideas on improving the webinars. Even if you just think, actually, it's fine as it is. I like them as they are. But any thoughts or ideas on how you think we could improve, great, let us know. Pop it all on that survey. That should take you about a minute. Your follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. So it's got a link to today's recording, a link to our registration page. If you haven't yet registered for tomorrow, we'll have a look, get yourself registered, and a link to our recordings as well. And just as a reminder, part 2, I've mentioned about 10 times now, but it is tomorrow at 11. So hopefully I'll see you on that very, very soon. Right, no additional questions. We'll end the webinar at that point. Get yourself registered for tomorrow and our sessions throughout March, which obviously start next week, they start. And hopefully we'll see you on them and you'll start earning things like your digital badge. Many thanks.